You're listening to Ernestly Speaking, the only weekly podcast that covers friends, foes, and anything that goes. And now, for your badass host, Ernest Owens. And we're back for another episode of Ernestly Speaking with your host, Ernest Owens, myself. Well, we're in May, deep in May now. The first week of May came in swinging, didn't it? I mean, like, come on. I'm sitting here like, woo. I had to do like a woo because it just seemed like everything all at once, like that great movie that is out right now that I really, really love. Go see it if you haven't seen it. Everything, all at once. Everything, anything, all at once. It's so good. Jamie Lee Curtis is in it. There's some incredible just flavor, like a lot of diversity across the board. And I haven't seen anything like it. It's everything everywhere all at once. I keep butchering the title. Michelle Yeoh is in it. And she's an incredible Asian actress that I think could get an Oscar nomination for the performance, to be quite honest. Very, very diverse cast. And it's an unlikely like superhero film that centers around Michelle, who is basically saving the world. And it's a lot about multiverses involved. Like it's in the multiverse. I don't want to tell the movie. It's nothing like you've ever seen before. It's an interdimensional rapture, to describe it by some, but it's different. It's different. It's not your typical like sci-fi action film. It's not like a Marvel film. It's deeper than that. It's very visual. But it's a deeper message. It's a great film. It's different. And I really feel like we're going to be talking about this film for many, many years to come. But I'm a big fan of it. It's at, they have at University City at the Cinemark, which I still have movie passes, which I didn't even realize I still had. So apparently my credit card has been charged for every month for for the past 2 years. I never stopped my car from being charged, but I was doing movie passes before the pandemic. I was big on them because you get these movie tickets at a price rate. You kind of get two. And Mr. Johnson, used to love to go to the movies a lot. And we don't live that far from the Cinemark in University City. So that used to be our thing. And then when the pandemic happened, I guess I never ended the tickets or whatever. I guess the monthly subscription. So I got a bunch of movie tickets that I have not used yet, which is interesting. So I've been going back out, watching a matinee or two or whatever on the low, and it's interesting because even though movies are quote unquote back open, you can still get a little, what do the kids call it, sneaky link situations at matinees where there's not that many people there and you can really get in on the action. And watching movies is just so different now anyway because, I've been watching everything streaming. So it's been an interesting experience to go back to the movie theater and have the experience. But I'm still not yet 100% sold on going on opening night at all. So it's for me, it's been catching a movie at noon or 1 o'clock and just kind of sneaking in and getting in on the action that way. And I feel like Everything Everywhere All at Once is a perfect type of movie where you can just kind of slide in and watch it and kind of don't have a huge crowd and get your laughs in and get your experience in. So super excited about that. Had an incredible dinner date with my husband the other day. We went to the Prime Rib at Casino Live, which I went when they first opened the Prime Rib there, which it's no longer at the location on Sansom. So for those who remember the original Prime Rib in Philly, where it was at Center City, and it was over there, right there in the heart of Center City, it's now at the Casino Live, and they have a revamped menu that I had last night, and it was fabulous. It was good. And every, let me just say this, every steakhouse is not the same. I have to tell people this. I know there's people that feel like it gets to a point where you can go to a steakhouse and feel like you had one, you had all. But I promise you that Alpen Rose is very different from, I don't know, McCormick and Schmidt's or some of these other places. I'm very much sure that they're very different. So, it's it's trial by fire for some places, but I'm not. I'm not a crazy what I call it steakhouse row person where you see all of these steakhouses that are like next to each other, and everyone's going to the same places. So like, oh, we're gonna go to the Capitol Grill, which you already know how I feel about the Capitol Grill. Not really, not my spot. I mean, and their little dress code. Steak 48 is cool. They're decent, right? They're one of the better of that strip. Then you got the Frisco's, which is good. I'll be there in 2 weeks. I think that's kind of like the standard, right? Like you start there and you move up. You don't go lower than that. So McCormick and Schmidt's and Capitol Grill to me is lower than Del Frisco's. But you go higher, and higher would be like Steak 48, Alpen Rose, Butcher and Singer. And there's a couple other steakhouses out there, but people love steak. But I enjoy prime rib. I really do. I have found it to be quite the experience. And the vibe is great. Surf and turf. It's funny because even though it's in a casino, it's very isolated from it. You know what I'm saying? It's very, very different. Um, so I'm very, uh, you know, yeah, very much find it to be great. But I'm taking it in. I just wrapped up my first ever commencement as a professor, which is a different experience. So Cheney University had their commencement on Saturday, and I went as faculty. So, I had to wear the whole highly regarded regalia, academic regalia, had the fancy cap and the long gown that looked very judicial. And it was fun because a year ago I had got my master's degree in communication management from USC, their Annenberg School of Journalism and Communication. And it was interesting because I didn't have the formal, walk in LA. I didn't go to Los Angeles and have the formal graduation because of the pandemic. So it was kind of virtual. So my whole graduating experience was very different. But it felt like, I don't know, having it on and seeing everyone graduate and kind of seeing some of my students walk across that aisle and get their degree. It felt somewhat like this was making up for it, and except it was more exciting. I mean, it was HBCU, so all of the Greek, okay, nothing but what's the histles and howlers and the barks and the roof, all of that was going on in full circle, which was fun. I enjoyed it, but it was just so many people apart. I think all of the Divine Nine, which is the Greek letter organizations for both fraternities and sororities, they're represented at Cheney. But there was definitely a lot of Qs, definitely a lot of alphas. There was a few AKAs, but lots of deltas, lots and lots of deltas. But it was an interesting draw. Everyone was so enthusiastic. The program went by really fast. Like it was pretty much, got to it. I think it was like under 2 hours, which is pretty good for a college commencement. Like everyone knew their P's and Q's. It was awesome. I got to see Shirley Ralph, which is from Abbott Elementary. Her husband is Senator Vincent Hughes, who's a state senator in Pennsylvania, of course, but in the Philadelphia area. So they're married, and so I saw her, and she was fabulous. I took a picture with her, got a selfie with her, and she's so nice. I've known her for years, and both of them. I actually did theater with their son Edson, who went to Drexel, and I went to Penn, and we was a part of a theater troupe called 4A, which is African American Arts Alliances, and we did plays and things. So it was interesting to like see her, and she still remembered me, which was super dope. I didn't try to be a groupie. I didn't say anything about Abbott Elementary. I just was like, hi, hello, how are you? Hey, hey. And Senator Hughes sees me all the time because, of course, I cover politics. So he was just like, you staying out of trouble, and I was like, something like that. So it was kind of cool, and it just the even though it's been a rainy weekend, It's been a good weekend. So it was a pleasure to see them, and also just to see all these people graduate, especially at a time of so much, uncertainty and political craziness and social upheaval. It was great to see them, and see all this black excellence. These all of these black men and women who are going to make a difference in the world and change society, and just do so much. There was parts where I wanted to cry, and I was a little teary eyed. There was one situation, one of the students who unfortunately passed away, and couldn't get their degree. Of course, they posthumously received their bachelor's, and the mother came up with a portrait of her son, and everyone in the room just stood up and clapped, and they honored him, his degree. And that was very touching. And there was a mother with her small baby with her in her hand while she went up to accept her degree as well. And that was just also another touching moment. But it was a lot. It was a lot, and it was a beautiful time, especially with everything else going on in the world. It was touching. So yeah, it was awesome. As far as everything else been going, the book, man, you all are still hype, okay, which is great because we're on that countdown, February 21st, 2023. Can I get here any sooner? Okay, we're doing like the countdown. We're like what, nine months away soon to the book, and it's been legaled, which is awesome. Legal in journalism terms, even in the literary world, is when the book gets reviewed by a lawyer and they look for anything that could possibly be a red flag or concern. And the good thing is that process has been done. So all of the people who's named in my book, it's legal. I can do it. I don't slander. I don't libel. Everything I say is backed by receipts and facts and fair and legitimate critique and commentary. So, that feels good, okay? Because a lot of times, high profile individuals like to intimidate journalists and writers with, I'm going to sue you, I'm going to, whatever. But in this situation, I'm just stating the facts, and we have a beautiful end notes at the end, and we cite the articles by credible sources. This is what it is to deal with journalists. See, we're not bloggers over here. See, bloggers say whatever without consequence in their head, and then you see what happened to Tasha K. You see what happened to a lot of these people who just think they can say whatever, and then they don't really think that these celebrities will actually take them to court. And so I take all of that seriously. As a journalist, it's all about getting the facts, verifying them, matching them, proving my points, building up that base. Even if you don't like something, it doesn't mean that it's false. And that's something that's going to come up later on in this conversation, because clearly there's been situations where people get upset about the realities pertaining to people they like or people they know based on it. So the case for cancel culture is in production mode. I'm super excited. There's more to come. June, there's gonna be some major drops, some major announcements. Pride Month is in June, so I'm getting geared up for that. For what it's worth, quote unquote. But it's been a year. It's been a year thus far, and it's only getting better. So, things is getting better. Things is getting promising. This U.S. Senate race, it's a wrap. It's a wrap. I'm ready to call it. I know it's less than 2 weeks away. Anything can happen. I know that, yada, yada. But I think as far as the U.S. Senate race goes, I'm ready to call it. I think any smart person who's been following the poll numbers, unless you're Conor Lamb's camp, it's a wrap. Conor Lamb is going to lose. I think the Democratic U.S. Senate primary, okay, that is going to be taking place in Philadelphia and taking place across Pennsylvania. When voters come to the polls on Tuesday, May 17th, they're going to make a decision. And I think that the majority of the votes will go to John Fetterman, the Lieutenant Governor of Pennsylvania. I don't see a path to victory for Conor Lamb or Malcolm Kenyatta at this point. I think it's pretty much a wrap. And they're trying. The candidates are out here in these streets. I mean, Conor Lamb has definitely been in Philadelphia a lot. But the poll numbers, they're just not looking good. So a new Franklin and Marshall College poll just came out 2 days ago, a couple of days ago, actually. Fetterman is at 53%. Connor Lamb is at 14%. Malcolm Kenyatta is at 4%. And this was a survey of registered Democrats, and it was conducted from April 20th to May 1st. Okay? That is a 12-point bump for Fetterman since the last polls that was conducted in early April. Let me tell you why that's a big damn deal. Over the past month, okay, in April, there was tons of attack ads and tons of debates, television influences that really was bumping heads and going in on Fetterman. And so in my mind, I thought that he was going to still keep a sizable lead, but I thought he was going to lose points slightly behind a lot of the negative super PAC ads and whatnot. Nope, that didn't happen. Instead, looks like for whatever, I guess people are Fetterman's ads is resonating. Malcolm has not ran ads. He can't really afford to run ads against Connor or Fetterman. Connor has, ran negative ads or his super PAC Pin Progress has ran negative ads. He has tried to distance himself by saying that he can't speak for, he doesn't have to hold himself accountable for those ads. It's not him to answer to them because he's not the one making them. But I'm just like, come on, Connor. This PAC is supporting you, and you and you know who's behind those PACs, and you have actually been on calls talking to people from that PAC. Now, it's not, to be clear, because FEC rules do apply. It's not that he is in cahoots with them per se, because the laws say that, but he has spoken to those donors and those supporters of that PAC. He has entertained questions and conversation with them and has been on calls. So you can't really go and act like, I don't know where this is coming from, what's here, I'm not speaking on it. It's just kind of disingenuous. And there's been a lot of, debates that have been happening. There was one with WRD Radio. And I just felt like with that debate, I did listen to it. I just, think that one of the things that's been really upsetting about a lot of the debates that's been taking place is that this is a race with mostly three men. Two of them are under the age of 40. Malcolm Kenyatta is 31. Connor Lamb is 37. And then Fetterman is 52. You have a race where you have people, those two individuals under 40. All of the people that have been doing these panels, largely, with the exception of maybe one or two that I've seen, are over the age of 40. Most of these panelists and people involved are older or whiter. I'm not seeing any black people doing the polls. The WRD, they did, but everyone on that damn set was over 40. Where are the young people? Where are the younger political voices shaping these things up? I mean, I'm always available, but hey, there's got to be other people out there that you can bring to the table to ask these questions. I mean, given the fact that there's two millennials running for the U.S. Senate right now, there should be millennial representation in these panels, and it's not happening. And so there's just a sense of out of touchness that's happening, in politics. And this is before this race. I've just noticed this more and more, and I'm very happy for the organizations and institutions that bring me in. I'll be, of course, doing a special with WRD through the Laborers District Council, which is Ryan Boyer, who is also over the buildings trades in Philadelphia. We do a political roundtable and special, but we'll be doing it on Election Day, and then we'll also be doing something on Friday the 13th, which will be on WRD. And I'm very grateful for Ryan Boyer, who's also the chair of the board of trustees for Cheney University, which is something I just found out. And, he has been really trying to increase more diverse voices and younger voices specifically into these conversations and forums. So I've been invited to be a part of that. Stay tuned if you're in Philadelphia, listen to WRD, especially in the earlier hours of the election day on May 17th, primary day, because I will be there talking. And to, full disclosure, Ryan Boyer is endorsing Connor Lamb. As you all know, his labor union endorsed, they're backing Connor Lamb for the seat. He thinks Connor is electable, the most electable. We agree to disagree on that. I wouldn't say I'm endorsing anyone per se, but I do believe in data. I do believe in numbers. I do believe in science. And I don't think that, you know, he has a shot. I don't think he's going to win. I don't necessarily think the way he's been running his campaign is appealing to voters like myself. And I just don't see it for him. So if I'm being quite honest, I think that the only person right now who looks like they have the steam ahead is Fetterman. I mean, let's be clear. I think he's ran a more positive campaign. I think the way he's been avoiding going negative in ads and attacking things. Now there is a super PAC that is apparently supporting him now, but he's been very clear in telling people that he still finds PACs, questionable, concerning, and does not, support them. But there is a crypto PAC that is now, super PAC that is now backing him and trying to secure that win for him. And maybe they probably will continue some of the general because he's going to need all the help he can get. There is already Trump endorsed candidates already winning primaries across the state. So J.D. Vance, who is, of course, famous for Hillbilly Elegy, that book, which became that movie with Glenn Close, which I was so excited about Glenn Close's performance. Not so much on J.D. Vance personally. I do not like him. And that book was whatever. But I loved her performance. And the film was, had mixed reviews. Now this guy is going to take that story, take that experience, and now he's running, and he just won a primary. And he was backed by Trump in spite of the fact that he criticized Trump in the past. Now this guy might be having an elected seat in office. Isn't that wild? It's wild. He went from author to politician, even though he is a phony populist, which some people have already said. It's wild, He's won. J.D. Vance has really used Trump's playbook in the Ohio Republican primary and is working to his advantage. He's going for that group. But and he basically won the party's nomination for Ohio's open Senate seat, which is a big damn deal. He's going to be a U.S. Senator in Ohio. Are we ready for that? Are we ready for Senator Vance? I don't know. Come on, Democrats. We'll see. But that's a pretty big damn deal. So that's happening. I think one of the things that have become more clear to me about these races coming up is that some of the biggest Conor Lamb supporters and stands have now began to accept the reality that this man might lose. Yes, they're coming to the reality that he might lose this race. How do I know? Because a very candidly individual that supports Conor Lamb, she went to Philly based on the support of a former politician or political hopeful. I won't even name this person, but they sent her to Philly. She was a big Conor Lamb supporter, not from Philadelphia. And we talked about these out of town supporters who are just stands. Well, this individual came to Philly. They looked at the city, talked to voters, and the way that they sounded on Twitter on their thread about how they felt about this race is that they sounded very slightly skeptical, I would say, about Conor Lamb's chances of winning. They kind of sounded like they accepted the potential defeat. They didn't want to say that to their followers, but it was very clear to them when they came to Philadelphia, they realized several things that I had already said several weeks ago. Now, many of you all probably remember the episode I talked about this moderate coats of Twitter followers and people that are out of state that's really been getting really nasty and ugly, and how I kind of ventured into this cesspool of a Twitter Twitter Spaces conversation with a lot of them and hearing their thoughts about politics and about this race and really trying to tell them that they had it all wrong. And I think like they're having a coming to Jesus moment now where they're coming to realize, oh shit, this is Philadelphia voters don't really know what the fuck is going on, or they don't care as much as we thought they would care. Yeah, there's some that have seen some things, heard some things about Fetterman or about this candidate or whatever, but it's not hitting. Magliata doesn't have as much pull in his own hometown, which I had already said. Fetterman seems to have the interest of some people, as I had said. Like, there's a lot of things that I had said months ago about this race that now people are starting to come back to the table and do some self-evaluation and have to look at it. Because what I told people is, do not drink the Kool-Aid on Twitter and social media. Social media tells part of the story, but not all of the story. And when you're dealing with politics, politics is local, politics is on the ground, politics is with people that make and break the entire damn bucket. And there's a lot of people who have gotten their whole ideology based on what they see on social media. You got to understand that the stunts, the shots being thrown on Twitter is only being seen by a certain demographic of people. And those people who are working class, go to work from 9 to 5 types of people don't have time to be on Twitter looking at what candidates are saying about one another. They're not doing it. More of the energy, I would say, that demographic is on Facebook. And a lot of the political back and forth around these candidates is not happening on Facebook based on how Facebook is designed. Twitter, you can quote tweet. Twitter, you retweet. That's a different engine. But most of these types of voters, right, are not on that engine. They're on Facebook. Young voters don't care. They really don't. They like who they like based on what aligns with their own political beliefs. But these incidents that tried to be inflated, these circumstances, I tried to say this in the most honest, unfiltered way, and it just did not hit to these people. They didn't get it. They were like, well, what about the incident 2013? I said, listen, that talking point, that incident has been brought up each election. It's been rang through and has not stuck. The U.S. Senate race is a big race, so definitely got more eyes and people talking, but voters have really moved on from a lot of the vitriol that has been spewed by opponents on that issue and that topic. It's not a personal opinion. It's clearly a fucking fact. It's just not hitting. And I said this months ago. I said, if you go negative into that focus, voters are not going to really give it that much interest. Some people, sure, people will fall off. But based on these polls, it's not sticking. I said this several months ago. And I feel this right now because I don't always like to be the person that says, I told you so. But in this situation, I told y'all so. I told these moderates, I told these very entrenched political coats that this is not how you win an election. This is not how you win a Democratic primary. How about that? This is not how you win a Democratic primary. Acting like Republicans in a Democratic primary does not get you wins. Using misinformation, using super PACs to skew misinformation that we all know isn't true does not help. Too many of these candidates have been doing this. Brian Sims, who's run for lieutenant governor, has been misleading people about the fact that he was endorsed by the gubernatorial frontrunner, and clearly the only one really running the Democratic Party, Josh Shapiro. Josh Shapiro is not endorsing Brian Sims, and Brian has continued to allow that misinformation to spread in his ads and his promotions. It's desperate, it's cheap, it's lazy, it's just not sticking. And so there's a lot of people doing some really weird things that just voters don't care about. They don't. And, when I said this, people said, oh, you're for vigilantism and hangings and things of that nature. And I was like, okay, you can keep talking about lynchings and you can keep saying people are for this and putting words in people's mouth and going super negative and using a bunch of toxic rhetoric to try to, manipulate support for a candidate. But here's the thing. If people don't know who your candidate is, you should spend more time building the name recognition of your candidate than trying to bash on one who already has a known name. Because telling us why you don't like this person who's very popular means nothing to us if you haven't done anything to explain more about your candidate and focus on that. And so I feel like a lot of the Conor Lamb supporters, many of whom live outside of the state, spent more energy bashing Fetterman than they did talking up Conor. And people don't know Conor enough to say, okay, if you don't mean like Fetterman, then how do I feel about Conor? You didn't tell people that. And so what I've seen actually is people who've kind of been sort of into Malcolm more now. But that's happening within the Conor Lamb and Malcolm Kenyatta circles. It's not changing Fetterman supporters. What's funny about the Fetterman camp, and it's not even a bad thing about them, is that people who support Fetterman have not moved. They have not moved on Fetterman. I don't know that many Fetterman supporters and voters that have been like, I'm moving. Yep, that I'm going to become a Conor. I don't see too much conversion. It looks like Fetterman's gaining voters rather than losing voters. And if these polls that are happening, no matter how many times, and there's some people, including Conor Lamb, that's been complaining about the polls and complaining about the data. Here's the thing. They have went through different parts of Pennsylvania, and it always keeps showing up Fetterman at number one, and they keep showing a wide margin between the supporters. No matter how many times you cherry pick from different parts of the state in the Commonwealth, no matter how many times you do it, it never shows up this widespread support for Conor Lamb. It's just not there. And it's not there for Malcolm either. Like, it's not happening. And they don't want to come to terms with it. But I'm here to say that with less than 2 weeks in the election, we're literally close to a week before the election. It is time to hang it up. Right now, if you're a part of the establishment, you need to start getting ready to welcome Fetterman into this nomination, and you need to start planning already what it's going to look like for November, because right now there is a lot on the table. Dr. Oz is getting backed by Trump. Trump is at rallies bolstering, Dr. Oz's name. J.D. Vance is coming with them. Okay, so they are ready. They're rallying behind Dr. Oz. It's looking like Fetterman versus Dr. Oz. Now, it could be McCormick too. I don't want to count him out, but it's looking like Dr. Oz right now. And if Dr. Oz wins that primary, y'all better be ready, because the real election starts then. All this Democrat stuff. Look, Democrats, they say what they say with primaries, vote for who you love, but when it's time to get to it on election in general, you better follow the fucking line. And there's too much of this whining and whimpering. It is less than a week. If you don't have the votes, if you don't have the money, sit down. Sit down. Because there's too much at stake. We need, 52 votes. Now, I know Fetterman's been saying 51. Technically, we need 52 because Joe Manchin and Kristen Sinema, they don't know what they want to do with their votes. So if you want to kill the filibuster, fight against Roe versus Wade, you got to have 52 votes. So Fetterman, 52, not 51. He's been saying on this campaign stuff that I'm going to be that 51st vote. You'll be the 52nd vote. We need the 52nd vote. But technically, we need to get 53, right? And everyone's calling themselves 53 pickup and all that. Cool. Guess I'm one of those people too. Just not for the people y'all like. But you need to get the numbers. And what I'm saying right now is there's no point in bashing someone who was clearly beating all odds. When I saw that recent poll that came out a couple of days ago, I said to myself, this is deep. This is deep. So it's a lot going on right now. And a lot of people are still trying to hold on. And I get it, because there's a lot at stake here. So if Malcolm Kenyatta loses, right? If he loses the primary for Senate, he still is going to be a state rep. He is unchallenged for his state rep seat. He is going to go back to Harrisburg, hopefully with more LGBTQ IA legislators, right? You have Andre Carroll, who is in the Northwest running against Stephen Kinsey, and he's openly gay and black. And it will be cool to see 2 black gay men as state reps rather than just Malcolm Kenyatta. And then I can have an option outside of just Malcolm Kenyatta to represent this portion of the community. But anywho, that race is getting interesting. He is out fundraising. The fundraiser finance reports came out this weekend for the races. And the numbers are telling. Andre Carroll, in spite of all the petition challenges and him and Kinsey and the back and forth, the negative, he is out fundraising Kinsey. Okay, so if you are in that district, there's a real race happening over there, and it looks like somebody's getting scared. Looks like Kinsey's getting worried. This is the 200 and the 201, the 201st district, which is in the Northwest, and it's been an interesting race. Kinsey has been really going negative. I've been looking at the stuff that's happening with the literature over there. Andre Carroll's being endorsed by council member Isaiah Thomas, Kendra Brooks, Nikhil Saval, Reclaim, Working Families Party. A couple other different people are endorsing him. He's getting all the endorsements. It's been wild to see how many people have come out and have supported him. He went to Temple. He's 31. He's got a lot of support going for him right now. And so Kinsey's been an incumbent for 10 years, and he's much older than Andre. There's a huge age gap between them, to the point where Andre could literally be Kinsey's son. That's just how much of a difference they are in age. And it's been a very tense race, because Kinsey does not want to give up his seat, and Andre is doing everything to take it from him. So it's a real race happening right now, and just keep your eyes open. But yeah, a lot has been going on this week in politics, because a lot of the energy has been shifted in the recent conversation about, of course, that leak. So I'm talking about the leak of the draft that shows that a majority of the Supreme Court, okay, the SCOTUS, the Supreme Court of the United States, is supporting overturning and overruling Roe versus Wade, which was the big landmark decision back in the 70s that gave a woman the right to an abortion. They're taking back abortion rights. This is an assault against reproductive rights, women's reproductive rights, the reproductive rights of anyone who is in that of that experience. So this does not just impact cisgender women. This impacts transgender individuals and non-binary individuals, lesbians, and others. So don't think it's just only an issue that impacts cis-het women. Reproductive rights impact all of us, actually. It's an LGBTQ issue. It is a Black issue. It is a women's issue. It is an immigrant issue. It is an issue that impacts anyone who has to make that decision, which is a tough decision, which is a personal decision, which should be something that is sacred to that individual and their body, not belonging in the hands of the courts. So to see Roe versus Wade under attack in this way is a lot. But this leak is, let's be clear, it's not official, but someone has leaked it. And Supreme Court Justice Brian Roberts, Chief Supreme Court Justice Brian Roberts, wants to basically investigate who leaked it. They're obsessed with who leaked it. Okay, they are really trying to find out who leaked it, because it is not a good look. Okay, it is not a good look. It's been interesting these last couple of days, just seeing it. Let me be clear. It's not Brian Roberts. That's the Comcast CEO. It's John Roberts. Sorry. All these Roberts. It's John Roberts, who is the Supreme Court Justice, or the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. He's the Chief Justice. So he basically once confirms that it is leaked. He did confirm that is authentic, but he's looking for an investigation. And there are people saying that Chief Justice John Roberts does not want to completely overturn Roe versus Wade. That's what sources are saying. But there's a lot of conversations about the entire situation. And, of course, that disgusting pig of a justice, Clarence Thomas, right? He is basically, trying to defend their decision, and he's just a pig. He's a pig. And then of course there's Supreme Court Justice Amy Coney Barrett and Alito's draft. Basically they said, which Judge Alito is Samuel Alito, who's also conservative, said the U.S. needs a domestic supply of infants to meet needs of parents seeking to adopt. That those who would otherwise abort must be made to carry to term, giving children up for adoption. Isn't that ridiculous? And there are roughly 500,000 children in foster care. They would have a higher risk of homelessness, abuse, and suicide. And so there is no baby shortage, okay? And babies are not commodities, which has been said by people I know, such as Raquel Saraswati, who is a queer Muslim women's rights advocate who tweeted that. And there's a lot of people who are challenging this. And a lot of people are speaking out. And to me, what's the most ridiculous part about it is that you would think that after 50 years of this debate around women's rights, that this would have been something that would have been an understood point. But see, the conservatives for years, okay, and I've talked about this in season 1 of this podcast. So look at the first couple of episodes of season 1 of my podcast. I talked a lot about Mitch McConnell, okay, Senator Mitch McConnell, and how McConnell is, to me, one of the most diabolical, most influential, powerful people in politics. Mitch McConnell is really that dude. I encourage you all to go to YouTube and look up Frontline Mitch McConnell's Revenge or something like that. Watch that. Seriously. He is the reason why, he has literally played a major role over the past 30 years of trying to get Supreme Court nominees to get a conservative court. He has spent his entire political capital and career doing this for a long time. Ever since Robert Bork was not, appointed and sworn in and confirmed, and he was borked in history. Okay, this man in the 90s, the late 80s, when Ronald Reagan was president. When this happened in the 80s with Robert Bork, he made it his mission to get conservatives on the Supreme Court. Clarence Thomas, Alito, Kavanaugh, Amy Barrett, Coney Barrett. I mean, he has been working relentlessly. He's been a hypocrite, of course, making sure Gorsuch didn't get a chance when he was talking about Democrats. He's done a lot of hypocritical things, but he is invested in seeing that Supreme Court get conservative. And that is where we are now. And to see Roe versus Wade being under attack like this was his plan for decades. And many other conservatives have been wanting this. The religious right, their investment. This has been ongoing. So for those who think this started with Trump, no, Trump was definitely a gasoline to the fire. And when people tell people that presidential candidates have influence, look into it. Presidents have the power to appoint. Look at Biden. Biden has the ability now to appoint. I mean, but oh my goodness, Trump, in 4 years of Trump, look how many times he was able to make appointments. If Trump had a second term, we would have been done. I mean, Supreme Court is already a strong majority of conservative power, but it would have had no chance. So at this point, retirement and death is what's stopping growth or progress or regression based on how they decide at this point. That's where we're at. I mean, we've lost more. For example, Ketanji Brown Jackson, who's now the new Supreme Court justice. She doesn't start yet until the summer. She's replacing another, liberal. She's not replacing a conservative. See, when Trump was president, Trump was getting conservatives replacing liberals, either through death or whatever. Ruth Bader Ginsburg, perfect example. She was a liberal who passed away. So that allowed him to have that, and also Kavanaugh. I mean, he was able to make these consistent replacements to Democrats. It's serious. It's serious. He got to replace. I think Kavanaugh replaced Kennedy. It's a lot. It's a lot of political maneuvering to how we got to this point. And all that can be said is that whoever leaked it did an act of revolutionary, right? Someone said it can undermine the Supreme Court. I don't. I think the Supreme Court will undermine itself based on how political it's gotten in recent years, super political and very polarizing. There was someone I was talking to about this earlier this week about this whole nature around how judges are running elections and that they're running as Democrats versus Republicans, and you're a judge, and a lot of that bias is just, I mean, for good or for bad, it's sad that judges don't come to the table looking at the law. Like, they literally make decisions based on a political. It's become super political. So you can't even take the Supreme Court. Like, I just feel like, to be honest, after the appointments of, Clarence Thomas is one example, but really, when I was born around the time Clarence Thomas was going, but I would say in my lifetime, I feel like Brett Kavanaugh's appointment and his confirmation was, for me, for my generation as a millennial, was the Supreme Court will never be the same. Because if I can't respect or hold any level of true gratitude or appreciation for who you are, and you're in one of the most powerful seats with a lifetime appointment, and I can't respect or look at you or trust you, then the Supreme Court and what it represents is diminished. And I really think it starts as Clarence Thomas, but for my generation, Brett Kavanaugh, and then after that you get Amy and everyone else, and it becomes clear that it's polarizing politically. So, it's not good. So, yeah. I mean, all we can do at this point is continue to fight. But, I think the more important lesson that's here, and I talked about this on social media in recent days since this announcement, is that it's time for Democrats to stop getting along to get along with people who don't mean well to them. People who don't want them to, succeed. It's time. It's time to stop, playing into this, oh, we have to get along, we have to come together. Bullshit, more bullshit. Republicans are 10 toes down on what they stand for and what they believe. They do not compromise. They will do whatever it takes to win. And I'm not saying that Democrats need to act like Republicans by doing the same disgusting things they're doing, right? Because we don't need to be having fake, misinformed super PAC ads. However, what we need to do is really get serious about not compromising our public agenda for the sake of trying to appeal to Republicans with elections. That whole idea of we got to appeal to them, we got to do this, we got to do that, it's not effective. It's not working. You can't win support trying to appeal to the same base that want to see things like Roe v. Wade go away. I mean, that's the problem for a long time. Even in Pennsylvania, Bob Casey, who's a Democratic senator, he is one of the few anti-abortion senators on the Democratic side. Him and Joe Manchin do not support a woman's right to choose. And it's so divisive, and it's a damn shame. But here we are in Pennsylvania, and it's complicated, and it's very, very, very disappointing. But these are his political beliefs. These are his, I guess, moral beliefs. So it's where he stands on the issue. But it's like, we can't have, more and more of that, where there's just no compromise. It's just not. It's not a good winning game plan. It's not a good strategy, in my opinion. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. But following on with this, and I bring this up because I'm getting to two interesting men or three, but really two. But this, I just cannot not bring this up. Of course, everyone's talking about comedian Dave Chappelle and what happened with him at one of his comedy shows in LA. a young man, launched at him like he was going to go after him. He's now being charged with 4 misdemeanors. The individual, who was this young black guy who apparently is a mega rapper or something like that, they were saying. But I find it interesting that, people, Chris Rock was there and gets on the stage and jokes and says, was it Will Smith? And of course calls him the softest rapper, and all this. And he's, poking jokes and making jokes. It's like, oh, Chris Rock, oh, Chris Rock. And all the people that sat up and really tried to defend Chris Rock and act like, he's this victim and all this bullshit. Chris Rock is milking it for his own benefit, of course. And pretty much, is going to continue to troll. And this has become his marching banter, right? He's going to turn this into a huge comedy series. I mean, he's already making money off of shows that don't even contain this material, but just the hype alone had concert sales going. I mean, there was a show in Atlantic City he did a couple of weeks ago where people thought he was going to talk about the incident, so everybody bought tickets and really was going hype. It's very telling, but it just goes to show you that these people are not like us, right? Like they find a grift every moment they can. They find ways to capitalize off of their own quote unquote traumatic experience. But I think for Dave Chappelle, why I bring this up is that, we didn't know who it was, but he decided to go out there and punch down an ad and say that it was a trans man, which it was not. But yet again, putting a target and putting trans people name in your mouth. It's like, we get it, Dave Chappelle. You don't care or want any support for transgender individuals in the community. You just don't. You are a homophobe. You are clearly a transphobe. You have profited off of consistently bashing gay people, but really, really, really bashing transgender people. That is just like your shtick. Your reputation has tarnished greatly because you spent so much of your energy trying to fight these petty fights and battles about free speech when no one is actually fucking taking your fucking speech. You're spending so much energy trying to double down on the most marginalized people in our communities, but at the same time want to act like, jokes are just jokes. Things are just not jokes. Jokes become ideas, which becomes public policy, which shapes other issues impacting all of us. And it's really frustrating, infuriating when you have people like Chappelle who continues to act like he's just like everybody else, that the issues that's impacting him is going to impact everyone the same. It does not. It really does not. And this is why I wrote the book, The Case for Cancel Culture, because I really wanted people to understand that this huge, massive crisis around cancel culture that people think exists is really a hack. Is really just talking points from the powerful to intimidate people from fighting and resisting. And these things typically happen during moments of big rebellion, and activism. I mean, Black Lives Matter movement right now, the racial uprisings happening, that's still ongoing. A lot of people that's just quitting and giving up on these corporations and want to do their own thing. They're at a point where they're getting over these very, modern, paternalistic, patriarchal systems that continue to oppress us. They're getting over it. They're getting tired of it. And for good reason, right? Because it's not liberating many of us. And for these men who just support Dave Chappelle up and down and just think that this is a moot issue, when you have to see Black trans women be buried behind murders that were senseless, when you have to see people, die of suicide because they were getting bullied at school for being transgender, when you see that happening, you will understand what it means and why it's so important to put people in positions to actually combat and confront these bullies in real time. Not everyone has the ability and gall to step up to Dave Chappelle. And I'm not saying that the person who decided to attack him is a great person, because clearly they have some political issues that are wrong. But what I am saying is that we need to take some time to really reevaluate how we amplify or believe the most powerful when they play victim. Because that's the real issue here, is that these individuals hold lots of influence, hold lots of power, hold lots of money, and yet they still want to act like, because they get, pushback or some type of checking on some of the things they say or do, that somehow they're just feeling the most uncomfortable, and they're just getting lots of major oppression. And there's a quote that often is said where equality for oppressors can sometimes feel like oppression itself. That for those who ever had to experience equality feels like discrimination for those who've never had to basically do it. Those who are privileged, who have to experience equality, it feels like oppression to them because now they have to share space with people that they definitely did not want to or definitely not intend to. And now they have to reckon with that. I think the real issue is that the reason why we haven't advanced in society with social rights and other issues is because there is a level of selfishness that's taking place in these communities. There are people that really are invested in hoarding the resources for their own personal benefit. There are people who just, just want to be centered. And I guess I get it, right? Because if you are used to a certain lifestyle, you don't want that lifestyle to change just because the rest of the world wants to, right? And that's what we're seeing. We're seeing people who don't want to see the world change because they are not ready to let go of the power that they've held. And it's a power dynamic, and more of that will be in the book, so pre-order it. But I say all this to say that fuck Dave Chappelle. Fuck him. He is consistently going to stay stuck on this island of obsession with transgender people. He's going to continue to put a target on their back for jokes and laughs. And at some point, when people are running up on you, it's not because of Will Smith and Chris Rock. It's because people are getting fed up, for better or for worse. And they're reacting in ways that are not as controllable because they do feel like that punch down is really hard. So there you have that. Which brings me on my next topic, which has been in the news. I've been in the news for a minute, and it's been a lot. Going viral. I'm reminded of why going viral should really be for me. I mean, it's often now it's become my yeah. It's been a lot. What I'll say about this topic, because I have words, I have some things to say. So Kevin Samuels passed away this week at the age of 57. It's official, he is dead. He was a controversial YouTube personality, I guess, influencer, who basically was a self-described image consultant who gave the most rigorous, in-depth, toxic assessment of women and men, specifically black men and women, was his main core audience. And he, had some very problematic fixtures around black families and black people, but really a lot on black women. I mean, there are a lot of his notorious rants and ravings talking about women who are over 35 being, in many ways, leftovers, and, applying his Chinese communist rhetoric to that assessment. He's also injected ideas around eugenics, talking about black people and apes, and talking about black women's appearances and how they're on scale and on par, not as attractive as other races. And it's very disgusting. He's really have ran on that. He's also there's a video of him telling a woman who it appears that a woman was accusing her lover or partner of possible sexual misconduct or improper behavior with a child, and this woman was asking Kevin for advice on on the fact of leaving him, and Kevin basically told her not to, that children lie, which has triggered a lot of victims of sexual abuse and that kind of hardship. He has really described people as being high value and low value as a way to describe humans, grown-ups, other adults. High value men, high value women, low value men, low value women, judging them based on how much money they make and what their waistline is and their appearances. I mean, it's very barbaric. And a lot of folks think that these traditional views is, eat the meat and spit out the bones is kind of how they have applied it. And some folks have said, he is like a mentor to them. They see him as a father figure. He has a massive stand culture of people, trust me, that I've seen on Twitter that have said crazy things to me. But he is really obsessed. And he was really obsessed with this. But he passed away under very, interesting circumstances. Police reports have come out, speculation about a woman, a nurse that he met the day before, coming over and sleeping with him. And then there was an incident where I guess he was out of breath, to which he had to contact, the paramedics, to which by the time they arrived, he was already dead. So there's a lot going on there. It was hard to track his whereabouts because people were very much saying that he possibly could have died. I want to say around Thursday, but people didn't confirm it as much until Friday because there was still speculation. And so there were friends close to him that confirmed it. It took time for his mother because to find out he wasn't even living at the house that he was found dead in. I mean, he was living there, but he didn't own that house. He was a subletter of a place and I think of an apartment, but he was like a subletter, which it pales in contrast to the lifestyle and the high valueness that he spoke of, that you don't own your own property, you have a sublet in an apartment, you died at 57, a lonely man with that survived by a daughter and a mother, but that's it. You don't have any of the things. I mean, this man has been married multiple times. He's had failed marriages and relationships and things. And yet he was giving this advice. It reminds me of, when Steve Harvey was doing the Think Like a Man. And yet he had multiple divorces and issues in his love life. Like, who are these men to just think that they can just give this type of advice to people? Like, who do you think you are? And sadly, but surely, he was making apparently thousands of dollars. He became really rich. He has a nearly $1 million subscribers. They were paying monthly subscription fees to his newsletter, but he also had over 1 million subscribers on YouTube and Instagram. I mean, this man, was known for wearing, being, real well put together in his fashion, and giving off this information, which I think allured certain viewers to him to think that he was somehow credible and legitimate based on his age and stature. But the truth be told, I mean, as like a lot of the things that he was saying about women, especially specifically Black women, were old, dated ass takes that were being said at barbershops across this country. Like, basically, Kevin Samuels, for those who have seen his videos, this man is pretty much your barbershop. He's the guy who gives you a little bit of spiritualness that tries to justify his sinister behavior. It's the highly disrespectful tone and tenor of a lot of his stuff. It's also the insults, the demeaning, the degradingness of it all that had made him entertaining. And it was just ridiculous. I mean, there was times where I've seen him, videos of him where he would say things like he would just ask somebody what their penis size was and deciding that was going to determine a woman's interest in things. It was very strict, very, very, very marginal ideals about masculinity and femininity, and very much so trying to enforce these traditional values. So I went viral, you all. I mean, over 30,000 tweets and counting, likes, and it was nearly 10,000 retweets around this. And so what I said was that Kevin Samuels has made a career off of shamelessly disgracing Black women for profit. He emboldened the most toxic individuals to protect tired and harmful narratives about Black women. Dead or alive, what a disgraceful life to live. That's all I've got for that misogynist. And so that became a very viral thread as well, because I did a thread about some of these issues. And of course, I got a lot of hate from his supporters. Of course, many of them said the most disgusting, homophobic things. I mean, they're all like a part of this whole red pills, in my opinion, toxic male circles that's online that really, really followed him. I mean, these are people that probably followed Tariq Nasheed, Dr. Umar Johnson, Dr. Boyce Watkins, and folks that carried this idea. These are all, cishet men who carry a lot of these very staunchly conservative views on gender and women and things. And then we wonder how issues like Roe versus Wade become modernized, or idea to overturn it becomes, because You see this new entrenched circle of men who are angry that the world is round and that the world is evolving and that there are people out here in this world who don't desire them or care about what their thoughts are. And the truth of the matter is that black LGBTQ people, black women and black people who protect and defend us, right? We don't owe any of these people within our community who afflict us any solidarity, care, consideration, respect, or grace. Like, we don't. And I think there's this idea of respect the dead, respect the this. I'm sorry, but to expect those people who were offended and harmed by a lot of the words and the insults of Kevin Samuels is gaslighting them. No one has to be respecting the dead of individuals who sought to put a target on their back and to insult them. Kevin Samuels have insulted a lot of black women, have disrespected a lot of them over the years with a lot of his takes and a lot of his content. And he's created and emboldened a group of people to go after women like this, to say the same rhetoric, to even go after queer people like myself. You know, I've been called a beta male because he's an alpha male, right? They call me a beta male. They've called me a simp and all these other terms that are really homophobic and derogatory about men. And it's a lot of that cult-like culture that takes place on social media that does not reflect the real world altogether. Now, it's a microcosm, but these extremes, okay? These extremes are being pushed by these people to upend elections, to shape and change public policy, to push harmful stereotypes and other negative things. So I've been very mindful in looking at the people who have been saying things about Kevin Samuels and who's been defending him, who's not. And it's been really, really hard, to navigate some of the people who played the whole, well, two things can be true, and it's like, no, in this situation, giving Kevin Samuels all of this grace and expecting those who've been victimized by him is just completely unfair, right? It's just completely unfair to them because, when Adolf Hitler passed away, or when he died, actually, when people said, fuck him, no one was saying, be respectful to the dead, let it go, don't do this. I mean, anyone who did was an apologist for the shit. No, they did not apologize for the toxicity of this individual. He died and people said good riddance. And there are people who felt like they was harmed by a lot of the things that, he said. So to force people to rally behind is a bit too much. Now, if people want to not do it or not support it or whatever, or support him and his content and whatever, that was their right. They had a right to say no. They had a right to say, don't watch this because it's toxic, or they told their friends to, right? Right before this even happened, there was an article in the Root, I believe, talking about the cancelization of Kevin Samuels, or when will he be canceled following his remarks about 35-year-old women. So there was already a lot of concern around him prior to his death. So when he died, and when I put my Twitter thread up, which was before he was announced then officially, it got a lot of traction because my mindset was that for starters, I'm not trying to just simply act like, Kevin Samuels is the worst person of all mankind, but he definitely did benefit from harming people with his words and his thoughts, his perspectives, because in the words of a good friend of mine, Sarita Martin, who is sincerely Sarita on social media, you're supposed to eat the words that you taste the words that you have in your mouth before you put them out there. And I've done a better job of trying that approach and thinking about what it means. But in some cases, you got to call a thing a thing. And in this situation, I had no choice but to. So when I decided to take Kevin Samuels on social media, it wasn't that I was celebrating his death. It was more so that I felt like it was high time for Black men like myself and others to really speak out against some of the things that we were hearing for years from him. Now, to be clear, I've talked about Kevin Samuels on my show multiple times. I've talked about him a couple of months back when the whole high quality, high value lingo was circulating on social media. And so this is nothing new for me. But when I decided to speak on it, I thought that it was something that needed to be said. That, yes, this man made an entire profit off of this shit. Like, what was people listening to? Like, what were people into? And you know what I really believe? I really have come to the thought that we live in a society that is seeking confirmation bias. It's not that people go to Kevin Samuels for real advice. They go to him to validate their deepest, darkest suspicions. They want someone to confirm it, and they want someone to say the things that they know they can't say. And so people who are influential in the way that Kevin Samuels is, that's what they like, right? That there's someone that can say the stuff that they already think, that they're already talking about. I have learned the older that I get that I need to stop acting like people are dumb, that are not educated in the same way. It's not that. It's that they choose. There's something about the way that they live in society and how they feel about themselves is that they go to people that confirms that tells them to stay dumb stay dumb, but to stay convicted in their bigotry, right? Because this is there's a desires and selfish thoughts that they have, and they want someone to basically give them that stamp of approval. And Kevin Samuels did that for a lot of men who did not want to be better for themselves. Like, there are men, these men know that there's something within them that needs to do better, right? But rather than them, spend that time to do the work, to get a therapist, to get all this, someone like Kevin Samuels comes around and tells them, hey, you don't have to change. They need to change. Successful men cheat is something he said. He says, every successful man cheats. Right, that's what he wants to put out there. So his advice to women is that you got to stay by that man, but you can't cheat. He was giving a gospel to the same types of toxic men that basically will always find women to be the problem and never them. These are the people who will probably obsess over Drake and Future songs and basically look at themselves as never having to be accountable to anyone other than themselves and their homies. He gave those people the playbook and the blueprint to live lives without that kind of accountability. They weren't dumb. They weren't misled. They just wanted someone that spoke to them. Same way like Donald Trump. Like, I know that Republicans did not wake up one day and just say, oh, Donald Trump has made me a racist. No, they had racist thoughts. They were racist. That was how they felt. But they found somebody that was big enough, powerful enough, rich enough to say the things that they wanted, that they couldn't say because they were scared of being held accountable, right? Or as they would put it, canceled. But I would say being scared to be held accountable. So because they had that fear, they basically had to, be respectable, have some goddamn decency. And so there's a desire in America and also in society for unhinged, powerful individuals that can push toxic, problematic ideals and normalize them in ways that makes it okay for them to co-sign as well. And everyone always wants to, hide behind, well, so-and-so said this. And it's like, well, even if so-and-so said it or not, you still felt that way. You're just looking for a leader. And so Kevin Samuels was that leader for a lot of men who did not want to be accountable or respectful to women. He was able to get them to feel good about themselves and make them feel like there was nothing about them they had to change. And he used identity politics. He used the patriarchy. He used everything in his arsenal to create that division. And so there are so many men out here who are saddened that their leader is gone, that Kevin Samuels is no longer here with us, and they don't know who to go to refuge. That will be another one that will emerge. Somebody will fall in his footsteps and push the same trash rhetoric. We've seen this shit for years. There's always some man who's got some ideals about how women should be that a bunch of men will flock to just so they can feel good about themselves. That is a business model, you idiots. It's a business model. These people really know it's a business model. They pay for it because that's what they want. It makes them feel good. They know that deep down inside, the shit that he's saying isn't necessarily right, but they don't want to be right. They want somebody that's going to make them feel good about the circumstance they're under. It's too much work for them, right? It's too inconvenient for them to go to therapy. It's too much of a hassle for them to look inward on their own shit. So they're looking for a scapegoat. They want accommodation. American capitalism has given people the ability to believe that with money and access, that can basically be the substitute of integrity and accountability. That's what it is. This is their way of divorcing themselves of it. They've paid for a subscription. They've bought a newsletter. They're supporting somebody who is telling them everything they want to hear. It's the way that we pick up in what newspapers we choose to read and what TV channels we choose. No one can go straight to the source or anything anymore because they want something to make them feel good. So Kevin Samuels made a lot of trash ass people feel good about themselves. And he did it at the expense of black women. He did it at the expense of black women feeling like shit. Okay, all this women calling and asking for advice. I don't know. Call me conspiracy theorist, but I don't necessarily know if all of those women were real in the sense that they were really calling or they didn't call for humor. Maybe some of them were naive, or maybe some of them were paid actors and actresses. I don't know. I'm not 100% convinced that everyone who called on that show were real people that really did. Or maybe some people probably did. Maybe some people really did seek it, because there is a cultness to this type of stuff. That there maybe were people who was really trying to get advice. Maybe there are pick-me's amongst us that really did want to know what it meant to be a high-quality woman from a man who can't keep a relationship. Or couldn't have kept the relationship. He's dead now, so I really have to talk in past tense. I did not have this in my 2022 bingo card. And the crazy part is that, like, the New York Times contacted me for a quote. They basically wrote an obituary for him of sorts. Pretty much talked about his life and times. And I was quoted and share about some of his problematic ways. And, it's interesting. And I think the bigger moral of the story is for me in this situation is that, if you do right by people, you don't have to worry about how you come across when you're dead. If you live right, if you do right by people, if you treat people with dignity and respect, you don't have to force people to put respect on your name at the grave. You don't have to force people to do anything more than what they're already doing. You don't have to do any of that if you're doing right by folks. I believe that. I'm a true believer of that. That for so many people that were scared and were fearful and stuff, you don't have to force a relationship. You don't have to force a connection. You don't have to force any of those things. If you do right by people, people will remember that, and people will do right by you. And there's too many people who are spending so much time trying to force people to not say anything negative about Kevin Samuels right now. Sorry, but the way that man has done so many people, you can forget about it. You can forget about it. Every article that's come out about him has labeled him controversial, polarizing, has had the word misogyny or sexism or patriarchy in all of it. Because that's the type of legacy that he's left. And the crazy part is that for all of the followers who say he's not sexist or say he's not homophobic or say he wasn't a negative person, how come all of the rhetoric and the things that people are saying about people like me on social media and others that do not agree with Kevin Samuels, why is it that all of the things that these people are saying matches everything, that these people are very much so acting like those people? They're acting exactly like those people. So you're telling on yourself. You're telling yourself. You're telling on yourself. And like I said to myself, you are who follows you. So if the type of followers you have are saying this type of stuff, right? Saying these types of hateful things, spiteful things, come on. And what's funny is that people are bringing up some of the things he's done in his years. So Kevin Samuels once said out of his own mouth 4 years ago that if he bashed women, his platform would take off and that men don't want to hear the truth, which is why he switched his content to bashing women. Like, he made a profit off of this. He knew what he wanted to do with himself. He based his whole career off of that narrative. He knew. And that was what it is. Because here's the thing that I've learned on social media. It is easy on social media to make yourself a beacon of cishet black men at the very concerted effort of bashing black women. There is an industry that benefits and profits off of bashing black women and bashing LGBTQ people. Like there is a group, there's a cult following of people who want to hear that kind of content. They want to hear men put women in their place. They want to come after highly educated black women, right? Because that's what Kevin Samuels did. He targeted educated black women, right? Women that were smarter than him, women that had degrees that he would never get, women that had aspirations and goals that made men like him feel smaller than what he already was, right? That's what he brought to the table. And so again, there was an audience for that. It was an audience for scrubs. He was basically the scrub whisperer. He was the person that galvanized that type of following. Those videos, those YouTube follows, there's an industry for it. I've told people so many times that I know that if I was to just deny my authentic self, if I was to put on a facade, I could get way more followers than what I have now. If I was someone who, decided I was going to wake up and just become a conservative and really just become a big, huge Trump lover and just bash black liberals, I could make an entire fortune doing that. Wouldn't be real, wouldn't be true, but there is literally a grift for it. Like there is a grift for black people to take on extreme conservative views. There is a grift for black men that can find 1,000 different ways to bash black women and try to make themselves seem academic by doing it. There is an entire industry for people to attack LGBTQI people in the most silliest ways. Bonus points if you are gay and you're in the community, but you go after trans people. There's an industry for that. There's an industry for people to thirst trap in ways that will fat shame other people. There is an entire fetish for people to push buttons and trigger innocent people. Like that's just a thing. There's 1,000 groups, and social media plays into that because there is a market of folks that builds things off of listens and views. And listen, I get the metrics, right? But now people are using that metric, right, of influence in ways that are not authentic or genuine. So now what they say is, well, look how many subscribers I have. Look how much I have. But the question isn't about how many. The question is, how did you? Right? We're asking the wrong questions. We're asking how many when the question should be, how did you? So how did you get those followers? I'm no longer asking people how many anymore, right? How did you get them? What did you do to get them? Because it's when I think about my social media, I barely do shirtless photos. Hardly any shirtless photos. I barely sell sex. Not that I'm shaming people who are sex positive. That's not what I'm saying here. But I'm saying that there are people who literally rely on the most basic elements of themselves to project beyond taking or daring to do more, or daring to say more, or daring to be more than who they are. I have seen people cheapen themselves and dumb themselves down on social media for clout. That's what I'm getting at, is the dumbing down part. The fact that you're scared that if you don't speak the truth, or you don't keep it 100, or you're not, doing the right thing or saying ideals that resonate with people in an honest, sincere way, that will not appeal to people. Then you need to figure out who your audience is. If you don't think you can be yourself in a way that can be successful, then who are you doing it for, and what kind of work are you trying to get into? Because anything that will put you in a position to compromise that heavy of yourself, then you probably are in the wrong industry, or you're probably doing the wrong thing. And the issue that I feel like is that there's been too many people that have been very nice and over flattering about standing up. But I want to add that I want to be clear that, yes, do I stand up for myself? Yes. Is it cool? Yes. Is it great? Yes. But I don't want this to be treated as something that's like a rarity. Like standing up for yourself should never be a rarity. It should never be something that is a novelty item that you can get limited edition at a macaroon shop. It should be a thing that you should recognize the consequences if you don't. And I think that when I look at the situation with Kevin Samuels, I knew that when I spoke out on Twitter and on social media about this, that there was going to be some ignorant trolls that was going to say some things. But then part of me was like, don't the ignorant trolls get to talk enough? Don't they already have a platform? Haven't we heard a fucking enough of the same dumbass people with the same dumbass takes? When are smart people going to take the fucking stand? When are we going to get up off our asses and say that is incorrect? That is wrong. That is not how we do any of this. This is not how any of this fucking works. Back the fuck up. Put some respect on her name. Trans women are women. Black LGBTQ people are a part of the black community, and you don't get to decide that. We've really gotten to a point where we're entering a moment in time where the most marginalized are tired of this shit, right? We're throwing hands, we're cursing people out in real time, and we're shaming people for all the stuff they have done. We're at a point where we're just not going to sit back and take it anymore. And they're shocked about that, right? These people are shocked that we're telling them, fuck off. Like, we're stepping up to these bullies and we're telling them, this is not okay. No, I'm not going to sit up here and be okay with that. Oh, they shrink. They crumble. They get upset. They're shocked because they're so used to us just being quiet. They're so used to us just being like, I agree and disagree, or choosing the high road. Why are the most marginalized people always expected to take this moral high ground when in front of our oppressors? Why? Why are we the ones that have to take the moral high ground? Why do we, this ideology of when they go low, we go high. We've been telling people this shit, and you know what happens? We don't, when we go high, when they go low, they stump on us even more. And where are we going high to? And how are we going high when they're going low? They're not just going low, they're actually going low on us. They're putting their foot on our necks. How are we going high? We act like in those dynamics, okay, that our oppressor going low is not them just oppressing even more. We've taken all of this out of context. We've gotten so caught up in this very, be a better person, do the right thing. Well, maybe standing up for yourself is the right thing. Cursing someone the fuck back is the right thing. Telling someone to go kick fucking rocks is the right thing. Standing up for people in real time is the right thing. And we've gotten to a point where we've forgotten what this is all about. This is about integrity. This is about self-preservation. And this is about liberation. And a lot of the stuff that I'm hearing in the name of positivity is toxic positivity that is actually doing more to, this is not doing anything to avenge our oppressors. It's actually giving them a cushion. It's actually us acquiescing. And we got to get past that. And I'm so happy to see more people telling these people to shut the fuck up. And that's where I am at it right now. I'm not being quiet anymore. I'm not just going to sit up and be quiet. If you don't want to hear my mouth, then you should just then you should think twice about what comes out of yours. If you think that you're going to have an opinion in front of me about LGBTQ rights, if you're going to think that you're going to have something to say about gay marriage in front of me and think it's going to be okay and I'm not going to be able to say something back or respond back, because let me be clear, I'm not saying that I'm going to yell and kick and scream at every person. No, what I'm saying is that if you're in a barbershop and it is 2022 and gay marriage has been legal since by the Supreme Court since 2015, so it's been 7 years, and you're still saying things like, I'm worried about the young children, then I'm going to have to tell you, you're not worried about the young children. Just say you don't like it. And just say that you don't know why you don't like it. And just let it be that. And just shut the fuck up and move on. Nobody cares. See, I did that one day. I was at my barbershop, and there was a guy in there, and he just was like going on his little rant. And normally I would just sigh, put my headphones in, kind of ignore, or I engage in the debate. And you know what I did? I didn't do that. I said, none of the things you're saying is true. And none of the things you're saying makes any sense. And, that ain't no way to be. Flat like that. Well, that's interesting to me. Explain more. No. I said no. I said no to him. And normally, okay, if it was, 2 years ago, oh, I would have spent mindless hours in the barbershop, explaining and talking because I thought that that's what it was. Oh, you have to explain it. But I'm at a point now where I'm not explaining shit without a consultation check. I'm not explaining and educating anybody without a check, without reparations, or without some support whatsoever. I'm not educating adults for free. Children, yes. Yes, because children are innocent. College students, yeah, I'll provide you some level of lecture or be a mentor. But grown ass adults who know how to pay taxes, who knows how to pick and choose their words anywhere else, yeah. I'm not educating or explaining anything to you if you're not family to me or you're not kin to me or close to me in any kind of way. And I barely do it for that anymore either. Because you can get Google, because you know how to act, and because the truth of the matter is, it's not that you really want anybody to explain anything to you. You want to be amused. You want to be entertained. And I'm not fighting and defending my existence anymore. I'm not doing it with white people. I'm not doing it with cishet people. I'm not doing it with other men. I'm not doing it at all. I'm not making a case to justify my right to live or to survive or to live a comfortable life with my husband and other queer people. I'm not doing that. I mean, do you understand how fucked up it sounds to speak falsehoods about marginalized folks and then turn around and ask them to explain to you your case or to make your case or to explain it to them because they don't get it? We have to get past that. I'm not doing it for free. I'm not. You want a consultation? Let's set up a time. Let me tell you my rates. And let's have a conversation that doesn't waste my time. Because time is money sometimes. Sometimes time is money. Sometimes time is peace. Maybe I don't want to go through the stress and the emotional trauma and labor of having to explain something to you that I've probably explained 4,000 different times, especially given the fact that I'm a journalist and I've written several articles. So you know what I also do now to be respectful? I say Google my name in that topic and I promise you I wrote an op-ed about it. If it's about a social issue, I've probably written about it. Google it and go read my thoughts there. Because I don't have the time, the capacity to give to you. To do what? Because either two things are going to happen in this situation. Let's keep it 100. Or three. Three things. Three things can happen in this situation. One, you're going to either get this information, throw it out the trash, throw it out your head, not give a fuck, do what you want to do. A waste of my time. Second thing you could do is you could take this information and you can learn from it and, you can try to find 1,000 different ways to poke holes and argue some more. Again, another waste of my time. Or you could take this insight, then run with it, think you've been enlightened, try to sell to other people and act like you're some new woke person on this topic, and then make money taking the philosophies and ideas that I have put out there in my argumentation and try to make yourself and rebrand yourself as some new woke person. That exploitation of my time. So there's the three ways that this can go down. And quite frankly, I'm not doing either of them. Okay, I'm not doing lunches where you can pick my brain or say, let's go for lunch, but really you're talking about your business and you want to pick my brain for it and you put me in a tight situation. I am no longer doing vague meeting times or dates. I mean, as you get older, as I've gotten older, let me clarify, as I've gotten older, I've gotten better at smelling the bullshit. I've gotten better at looking in the mirror and saying, wow. And I've had to take that time to look at myself and say, wow, I'm really that person. Wow, I'm really a big deal. And you know what? I matter so much that I won't let this happen because I value myself enough not to allow my time to be wasted. There's got to be a level of self-love for yourself to block yourself from the types of ignorance that people put out there. And I say that because when I think about the places I've gone that have become triggering spots or hot spots, and I think about what's being asked of me in those settings and what's being asked of me in those moments, I'm realizing that so much of my time is going to my oppressor or going to people who come from privileged backgrounds. And I'm doing work that they pay other people to do. And I'm not doing that anymore. And I've been very firm. But I want to say this out loud to other people. that you have to be mindful. If you're a white person listening to this, if you're a straight black person listening to this, be mindful about how you engage queer people, black women, and others. Be mindful about what you're asking for people to explain to you that is outside of your personal orbit. Now, if you're close friends with somebody, you have a relationship with somebody, that is an exception to the rule. But I'm talking about some of these people out here that see people in their network and they're asking consistently of labor that should be somehow, compensated. Monetary to me is how I move, but some people may want different things, other things, right? Credit, a platform, something. If you come to that table seeking something from marginalized people, you better have an opportunity or option on the table to offer for them to choose. Either they can say yes or they can reject, but you better have something you bring it to the table. Because I'm so tired of so many people asking of myself and others that look like me for things that they will never see a value enough to compensate for, or to acknowledge, or to cite. There's a lot of that going on, and we don't talk about it a lot because we're acting like that to ask of these things, to expect these things, is to ignore them, to deny them. No. I disagree. I think there's a lot of real opinions and thoughts in the world that can be found simply by Google, simply by reading articles. What happened in 2020, right? Wasn't you all supposed to be following black writers and thinkers? Wasn't there articles and books on your tables and your magazines? The answers are there. So I've gotten to a place where I'm no longer going to be naive to the very clear, deliberate disrespect of a lot of these people. Mm, 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 mm. So there's a lot. There's a lot. There's a lot. There's a lot to unpack. And this Kevin Samuel situation really made me think about men like him and men who follow him, and how much of my time and energy is often going to them. But alas, in other news, the White House made history this week. So for the first time ever in White House history, and I'm so surprised that we still have to say first, but it's real. Karine Jean-Pierre, who is a black lesbian woman, is the first black person and first openly LGBTQ person to ever be a White House press secretary. She is an official title. She'll be presiding over the press conferences for the White House. She's replacing Jen Psaki, who's been there for, a little bit of time. She's going to MSNBC. Jen is, but Karine is in this position now, and it's interesting. I didn't see it coming. It's going to be interesting watching White House press conferences and seeing a black woman on there. Because for so many years, it's always been, someone white. A lot of times white men. But, there was Sarah Huckabee Sanders. There was, Jen just had the position. But it's going to be interesting to see this happen. And, I'll say this. A lot of people know that Simone Sanders and I don't get along. We don't really see eye to eye on things. She doesn't care much for me. I don't really care much for her. She blocked me on Twitter after I called her out about her. After she trolled me around the piece around D-Ray McKesson that I wrote for Campaign Zero. And she, basically, decided to be a bully on Twitter. And I called her out for it. And my followers saw it and it was like, that was messed up how she did it. And, we had some exchanges in the DMs and she blocked me. And I was like, okay, well. So she's at MSNBC. She was at the White House and she was at MSNBC. She's at there now. She has a new show on there. It just seems like everybody Yeah, and she was at Kamala. She was in the media press circle for Kamala Harris, um, working on her campaign. I mean, she's working on Biden's campaign, but then worked in Kamala Harris's wing administration, um, and left quickly. And now went to MSNBC. She didn't stay there that long, but apparently the rumor was that she ideally wanted to be the press secretary, and allegedly, based on articles, allegedly was bummed that she did not get the position. But that's what she really wanted, idealistically, to be the press secretary. But then Jen got it. I wonder, if for what it's worth, how she feels now, because I wonder if she ever thought that maybe, even though it didn't work out that way, that if Jen would have left, what she would have been considered for the position. Who knows? But she's at MSNBC now, so that was an interesting thing. Like the moment I saw that, I was thinking to myself, I was like, "There's a reason why this is hitting different." Like I remember hearing, I just remember hearing about there was there was another black woman who wanted that job, and I couldn't remember who. And then I was reading something in Politico, and I was like, "Oh, Simone, that's right, she did want this job." But apparently she's got a new show. And Jen, look at Jen, white woman. Look, she got both. She got press secretary and she got MSNBC. She got the best of both worlds in the end. Politics are messy like that. So Jen is at MSNBC, and I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what it is. Is it the money? Is it just the lack of pressure? But this whole recycling of White House. I mean, it's I don't know what's going on over there, but I'm not used to seeing so many of these White House, staffers in these top positions leave so quickly and then go, and go into cable news. Like, it's like wow to me, because then you just automatically apply your intel there. It's just really weird, and then you become colleagues with these people at MSC. So you went from being in a relationship with them to then being this press secretary that's supposed to withhold information. Then you go to the other side. I just too much. I don't know if I should call it conflict of interest. I just think it's just very sticky. Like you was taking questions from the press, and the whole time while you was in this position, you was looking for an opportunity and gig at MSNBC. It's just kind of like, I don't know. I mean, the way that we talk about media today, the way that we talk about journalism today, it's just changing. But I will tell you that none of these people are journalists. The people I named, none of these people are journalists. Okay, media pundits, analysts, all that, sure. But there's too much red tape they walking over to consider themselves journalists. But nowadays it just feels like everyone's just in bed with each other. Pundits, analysts, all those people, and then they're commentators, and they're in the same room with actual journalists. It's just messy. It's very messy. So it's just telling across the board. Very, very telling across the board. So what have I been watching and wrapping up? I have not really been watching too much. I've been so wrapped up in this big story that is coming out next week that I've been working on for about a week and a half, and I've been real quiet about it. So for those who've been watching, following me on Philly Mag, it's coming out in Philadelphia Magazine. And I've been working on it and getting it down, and it's coming out Monday, and it's going to be a bombshell story. I can't tell you anything about it. I know. I'm back at that again. But really, it's going to be good, and we're going to talk about it in depth on the podcast. We might do a special edition. Oh no, I ain't no promises, but it's going to be a big topic, and I just May has just been a month of a lot going on. A lot has been going on in May. So, yeah, it's going to be very telling how this all plays out. But May has been shaking up. Okay, right before the election, I got a big story. Not to say that it's about all of that, but it's a big deal. Yeah, it's a big deal. So I've been following a lot of the things going on um, you know, getting excited each step of the way, following the elections, keeping my eyes open. All I gotta say is it's not over until it's over. And, just keeping my ears to the ground, seeing what's going on in these streets, following the news. It's a journey. It's a journey. So, as always, until next time, be well and be best. Ernestly Speaking is recorded in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and can be found on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. To stay up to date with the latest on the show, follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Mr. Ernest Owens. Use the hashtag Ernestly Speaking to tell me what you thought about this episode, and check out my website at ernestowens.com.